Hello Idle Hero fans, thank you for tuning in today, as I'm going to be making a video that talks about the seasonal auras for battle. Now, I think this is actually my first video directly about seasonal, because normally I actually don't spend too much time playing, but for some reason this time I was actually kind of sucked in. Maybe I'm just getting back into the game a little more wholeheartedly and wanted the second server to play in. But either way, I want to get into what makes this seasonal special, and this time what Meh has done is he has changed the way the auras work. Not so much like the conditions or anything, they all still require the same heroes that they would have before, but now they just have much better effects. And let's just go over them right quick to get this kicked off. Shadow has 100% armor break, 20% hit, and 20% HP, and this is a pretty good bonus for Shadow. The 100% armor break is actually kind of ridiculous and might actually be a little bit overkill, since a lot of the Shadow heroes do have armor break as well. I don't think armor break stacks past 100%, so I actually think that this might have been better at 80% and then give them like 30% HP, because otherwise there's a bit of wasted stats here. But they also have 20% hit, which is nice, and it'll pretty much negate anything that the guild tech tree would throw at them. Fortress has 20% dodge, 20% armor, and 20% HP, and 20% dodge is very, very good. 20% armor is pretty shitty, and then the HP is standard. I don't think that this is too bad though, because Fortress is a very, very strong faction, so looking at maybe something a little bit less useful as dodge, or armor, sorry. Dodge is very useful. Looking at something a little bit less useful as armor isn't such a bad thing, especially because they have Ormus on their faction. So if you make a team with like Mickey and Ormus and Emily, you're going to have an incredible amount of sustain, especially combined with all that armor and dodge. It's going to be very difficult to actually kill those units. However, it does seem a little like lesser compared to some of the other ones, but I get that, like I said, that is balanced out by the fact that the heroes are so strong. Abyss has 50% attack, 50% crit damage, and 20% HP, and this is ridiculously powerful, honestly. If you think about something like Kareem going crazy with these crits, 50% attack and then 50% crit damage on top of that, so Abyss units could go mad with this. Now, luckily Abyss is not in like a super good shape for heroes right now. You look at Brea, and that's pretty much it. Let's see. Why am I'm like blanking here on heroes. So you're looking at Brea and Margaret and Queen that are really going to take advantage of that of those attack bonuses. But holy shit, will they ever take advantage of it? Especially ones like the Queen and Margaret, where they're going to be put in the front row, and their abilities, like these here, like Toxic Skin and the counter, they all rely on attack damage. So getting a huge bonus in attack is pretty good. Now, the only thing is that these guys don't crit that much, so they're not going to take a big advantage of the crit as others would. I think that Sekrai or Skrai, well, I still have no idea what this guy's name is supposed to be, could actually take pretty good advantage of that, because there is crit in the guild tech tree, and he does get a little bit from this insect armor, so he could actually be critting pretty hard, pretty fast. But I don't know if there's really a good way to make like a full Abyss team, to be honest with you. You might have like 2 Margarets, 2 Queens, a Brea and a Sekrai or something like that, or a Kareem. But it's a little awkward because Abyss, the faction itself, is a little awkward. Forest has reduced damage by 20%, which is amazing. Regeneration by 30%, which is again amazing, and HP plus 20. Now, damage reduction and regeneration is pretty crazy if you put like Gru and Rosa on the same team, and then you have like Demon Hunter silencing people. I feel like Forest might suffer a little bit like Abyss does, because they just don't really have the heroes to make a full team like this, and that's where I feel like some of these kind of got shafted. I think that something like Shadow and Fortress can make good teams with just the heroes they have from their faction, but Abyss and Forest kind of fall off a little bit. Maybe not so much Abyss, but Forest definitely struggles to make a good team with just Forest units. So these two are a little bit lesser, whereas the Fortress and Shadow are a lot more not only achievable, but you'll actually have pretty good success with it. The Dark faction has 100% control immune, 150% skill damage, and 30% HP. And this is actually super, super strong. Like, never being able to be hit with crowd control, as well as 150% skill damage is amazing. Now, it's, again, you're going to have a little bit of trouble just because making 6 Dark heroes is going to be absolutely ridiculous. But if you can, I think that the Dark and the Light factions are actually insanely powerful. 100% holy damage, if I'm not mistaken, just means that all of your damage will go through. I don't know. I think it's the same as armor break, essentially. Except it also might negate armor or like damage reduction. So for example, the damage reduction that you see here from Forest is probably negated by holy damage as well. Whereas armor break would not negate that. Holy damage will. Holy damage will just do flat. No matter what damage you were supposed to do, you're going to do it. No matter what the conditions are. So I actually think I like Dark's ability a little bit better, because I think that skill damage is insane right now, especially if you have like Dark Arthendals and Das Mogs on your team, which is, as you can see, what I'm kind of going for here. Of course, I'm not going for the Dark faction, but still, these two are very powerful. Now we look at color mixing, or rainbow. I never understood why I called it color mixing. Just call it rainbow aura. Which is attack, crit, armor, and HP by 5%, and this is honestly a wash. This was pretty much made this way so that nobody was motivated to actually use the. So no one was motivated to actually use color mixing. People were pushed towards actual specific factions, and that makes sense because I think that's the whole point of this actual seasonal server, is to try and play one aura that you find particularly powerful and run with it. And color mixing kind of defeats the purpose of that a little bit. Since, and I guess maybe one of the more lesser points of this seasonal server was to kind of get people to branch out to teams that are not on server 1, because server 1 right now is very, very populated by rainbow auras. So this might have been Mez's way of kind of pushing people into different teams. It's like, try something new, and this is a perfect way to do it because nobody wants this aura. This aura is trash. Like, it's terrible. Good versus evil is 30% control immune, 50% skill damage, 30% holy damage, and 20% HP. And this is also insanely strong and a little bit more manageable, because when you're going for dark and light in the tree, you'll be able to get both of these pretty quickly, because you'll get about an even spread of light and dark heroes. So it's a little bit easier to get good versus evil than it is to get either dark or light. So this is a much more achievable aura, and it's very strong. I haven't actually seen too many examples of it though, so I don't know how particularly powerful it is. But I mean, looking at 30% true damage, 50% extra bonus damage, and then making it hard to actually be hit with crowd control is very, very effective. Now we come on to Ruin, and Ruin is 25% attack, 50% armor break, and 75% skill damage. And this, in my opinion, is probably the strongest faction right now. This is the one I've chosen to go for, and just based on pure damage stats. The amount of damage that you do when you're running Ruin is ridiculous. Because you look at my team has very heavy crowd control in it with, or I guess not very heavy, but my team has moderate crowd control with Karma and Arthendal. So there's actually some, like, utility here. And plus, Bloodblade can sustain pretty well, and Margaret can act as an off-tank. So this team in itself is not bad, even if it was on Season 1. But then getting all of that extra damage given to you by Ruin is just absolutely ridiculous. If there was one thing I would have done, I probably would have steered away from Kareem. But I did want 2 big heavy hitters at least. I wanted to have at least like Bloodblade and Kareem to kind of be able to knock out a few of my opponent's units quickly, so that the ones that either don't get crowd controlled get knocked out, or at least the one that does get crowd control gets killed before they can do anything. I wanted to have at least a few quick draw heroes, because I think that takes advantage of the fact that if the heroes are going to be hitting so hard. Now, maybe I've made a mistake, and blanket heroes that hit everything, like Arthendal, Kareem, or Arthendal, Karma, and Margaret would have been better, and maybe put Queen on my team instead of Kareem might have been just as good, because of such a high damage. Just, you can clear out the whole enemy team at once. But that's one of the things about seasonal that's hard to tell until you've gotten into the thick of it, is that you don't really know how the teams are going to synergize with these new circumstances. So I think that I did all right making my team for Ruin. I'm not near the top of the server because I did start late. I think I missed like 4 or 5 days, so I'm a little bit behind. But my team is turning out pretty well, and I think that Ruin is probably the strongest aura right now. The next one is Redemption, which is 2 light, 2 fortress, 2 forest, as always. Dodge 10%, 10% reduced damage, and then 50% holy damage. Now this is a weird one. I actually don't like this that much because I feel like the dodge is too little to really make a big difference, because you're only going to have 2 fortress heroes, and the fortress heroes are the ones that are generally dodging the most. So you're going to put like Emily and Mickey, I guess, if you really want to take advantage of that dodge and the damage reduction. But then you're kind of missing out on Ormus, and if you do put Ormus on your team, then the dodge is kind of wasted. It's just funny. It doesn't really feel like the dodge is that important. Now, I will say, even if you do put Ormus on your team, it is nice because he does have dodge from the guild tech tree, so it's not as bad as it might seem. But I don't know. I just don't particularly like the Redemption aura as much as the other ones. Now, the holy damage is still really powerful, and the damage reduction is still amazing, but it's hard to say exactly how far this goes. Justice Aura, Justice Aura is 7% dodge, 7% armor, 10% regeneration, and 7% reduced damage. And that's actually really strong, but the numbers are just kind of low. So I find it funny. I guess it makes sense because this is one of the easier auras to do, so it makes sense that they're a little bit weaker. But again, I just wish that the dodge and armor wasn't a big component. But I do understand, because Fortress is super powerful, that if you made Fortress have auras equal to everybody else, that's all you could really run. The only reason that you can compete while not using Fortress in this seasonal is because the auras are a little bit toned down. And that's perfect. That's a good way to balance it out. And I wish that something like the actual server 1 or the real server would take that into account, or at the very least just fucking nerf Ormus. Like, come on, where are you guys at? And the last one is Evil, and Evil is again insane. I think 17 attack, 17 crit damage, 30% armor break, and 7% hit. This is a beautiful boost of stats, especially contrasted to the Fortress factions, where they have that little bit of extra dodge. Just giving Evil a little bit of extra hit, and then all this extra damage kind of counteracts that completely. And this is amazing. I think Evil is super powerful. If you don't want to dedicate to having 2 dark units on your team for Ruin, this is probably the second best. Maybe right up there with the Abyss aura itself. Like I said, Abyss is a little bit awkward because the heroes are hard to manage, but if you can find a good team for Abyss, this is very powerful, and so is Evil. So basically the way I look at it is that I think Ruin is definitely the best, and I think that Evil and Abyss themselves can be pretty strong. So it's actually funny because all of the Abyss and Shadow factions seem to be incredibly powerful. Shadow is a little bit lesser because I think that, like I said, the 100% armor break is a little bit overkill, and the hit isn't as useful unless your opponent is running Fortress or Justice or Redemption. But still, I mean, it is nice, and it'll counteract anything that you see in the from the guild tech tree. So yeah, guys, just let me know what you guys think. Do you guys which auras do you find best? Do you think that Ruin is as powerful as I'm making it out to be? Maybe it's overrated. Just let me know what you guys think, and of course, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. This is my first seasonal video, so I'll kind of gauge the reception of this one to tell if I should make more in the future, so let me know. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.